Reverend Mother must combine the seductive wiles of a courtesan with the untouchable majesty of a virgin goddess. Holding these attributes in tension, the powers of her youth endure. For when youth and beauty have gone, she will find that the place between, once occupied by tension, has become a wellspring of thinking and resourcefulness.
Peace, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to Movie Understandings. I am Brother Lowe. Happy Eid Mubarak to everyone. I hope y'all have enjoyed the Ramadan and the fasting, and got a lot of clarity in this time. Um, Peace, Sister Manera. Shalom with it, Des. But as you know, Ramadan comes to a close. So does the final uh, part of the TV series Dune, right? And mind you, like I said, this was done by the Sci-Fi Channel, and this was not the only one that they did. They also did Children of Dune, which came later, but and I would review it, but since it's not on YouTube or anything like that, I really can't. So, of course, I have the original DVD versions, but you know, it's no fun if everybody can't see it, you know. So, but yeah. Besides, you know, like I say, read the books. And if you can't read the books, there's the audiobook version, which you know is good because you have more than one narrator in pretty much the whole entire series. It's not just one narrator, you know. But in this final part, right, uh, we see that you know the Fremen are uh, making raids on the Harkonnen and Spice and their factories and things of that nature. And you know, they're on, you know, the mountaintop. And, you know, they're like, you know, it's time. You know, they you know, the Harkonnen are weak. Um they asked Paul, let's invade. And he's like, no, it's not time yet, you know. But he talks to Cheney, right? And he tells her that, you know, there are things still hidden from me, you know, places I can't go and things I can't see. Now, mind you, he's taking Spice. And as you see in this first scene, you see, you pretty much, I didn't realize it, you know, seeing this part so much, but you see how he's dependent on the spice. You know, he's basically addicted now to the spice, you know, because he's taking it now. So you see some uh sign of outwardly sign of addiction, spice addiction when it comes to Paul. And she says, you know, do you even worry that just trying to see the future changes it? You know, because she questions these things because she, you know, she doesn't really like what she sees. And you know, she asks, you know, will we ever have peace, Muad'Dib? And then he says, we'll have victory. I always liked that line, you know, when I was a kid because it was just so cool to hear. But now understanding it, you know, when she asks that, it's not really giving her an answer because all it's saying is we're not going to have peace, but we're going to win. It's not going to really be over, you know. And like I say, it's a cautionary tale on leaders, and you see that even in his basically false promise, he's not really giving the Fremen what they want, even in that scene, um, because they just want things to be over with. At least that's what Cheney wants. And he's like, man, we're gonna have victory, you know. But after that, you see Faye trying to kill the Baron. Um, and Baron's smart, he's very Machiavellian, and he knows how to play the political game. And he's like, why, why you think I left you alive? Because it amuses me. You know what I'm saying? Think about this. He's like, I'm leaving you something in Iraq. He's like, what's there? All these dang on raids that's happening, and my brother's not doing anything about it. And by the time some something is probably worth it, the emperor's gonna have to intervene. He's like, you're not as dumb as I thought. you know so you want the emperor to come to Arrakis. And he's like, yeah, you know I want him to come there, because there he's vulnerable. There, he will have to intervene because he cares about the spice. Because mind you, all of them take the spice in some way. They're just not as addicted to it, probably as those who were the guild. They're probably not as addicted to as like the guild navigators are, or or the Fremen, because they just live there. So even though they may not choose to take it, just by living there, they're addicted to the spice. Because like I say, as that the spice is a life extender as well. And so, of course, the emperor's spice profits and things of that nature, of course, he's going to intervene because they messing with his money. You messing with my money. And now that the emperor's not the only one, you got to remember the band just ran the guild of silent partners. So, of course, something has to be done. But he wants to draw him out just so he can kill him on Arrakis. And then the Harkonnens become, the imperial family and things like that. Just to draw him out, like he said in the first part. You never get bigger than the boss unless you intend to sack him. So he playing the game. He intends to kill the emperor and take the throne for himself. And in another scene, we see Alia, who's still a kid, and she comes in while a baby is being born, and she looks at him and she says, he looks like Mika's son, and then one of the midwives says, how do you know that child? The slaughter on Bela Tagus was a long time ago. You weren't even born. And she looks to him and she's like, but mother, I saw it. And her mother says, yeah, he's Mika's son. And then when they're alone together, her and her mother, she's like, I hate them. They stare at me and they whisper when I go past. What I'm saying? She sees herself as a freak. What I'm saying? And her mother says, we'll make them see, Alia, that you're not really a child, and that you never have been. And she admits that it was a painful thing to give her the water of life in that aspect. And so what you have to understand with the fate of being preborn is that like I said, Alia has all these memories of many reverend mothers, and not only that, these not only just the memories, but you will say the spirits of these reverend mothers and of her own ancestry are alive in her, right? So of course she's never been a child, because of the simple fact that she has all these mature, grown up adult memories living inside of her. So she's never really been a child in that sense. It's you will see, if you read the books and you read Children of Dune, you see this again with Paul's children, especially this one scene where Leto talks about, sex. And he's a kid. And Sturgis like, how, you're a child. What do you know about it? And Leto is unabashful of it. He's mature about it. And basically he's like, I've done it better than you. In my memories, in the lives that live within me, I know it better than you, and I know how to do it better than you in a sense. But he's never been a child in that sense, and so he's unabashful about sex and things of that nature because he's witnessed it. He's awakened to that consciousness before he came out of the womb, so he's unabashful about it, and it doesn't bother him. Whereas the grown-ups around him are like, who is this child trying to, tell us about sex? But he doesn't see himself as a child. He doesn't do child things, he does very grown-up things as well as his sister. And you see that with Alia. She's not a child, so she doesn't play with the other children because none of that stuff fancies her, because she's never really been a child all along, and that's the fate of being preborn, And after that, you see a scene where Paul pretty much has a vision of, there's three worms, and it seems like, they're saluting him and things of that nature. But then you see that, the worms are dying, these three worms are dying off, just think about the number 3 and what it represents, the understanding, and all the green that was in this, that's coming from the sands. And then you see the worms vanish, they go back into the sand. And then you see, green going all around him, and he's basically having another waking dream. But it's sort of the future of what Arrakis would be. The worms are dying off, and there's green, which that's what they wanted, right? That's what they wanted. But there's you don't see the blowback in that scene, or what's the consequence for something like that, to change the ecology of Arrakis. Reminds me of the movie I saw, Neja. How they feel the child because of their difference in power. Yeah, it's like that with Neja, because Neja it's sort of like he was destined to have that and even that's interesting because he was destined to have this awesome power, but then he got switched. And he's not what people, he's not what people expected of him. He's all fire and brimstone, and he wants to fight everybody. He's not scared to fight, but yeah, it's like that when it comes to Alia. She's never, like I say, she's never really been a child, because she has all of these people living inside of her, which says something, just think about certain spirits, and their memories. Like if you had, like I said, the Ben just read, they had all these memories of past people. Just think about that. If you have memories of just Reverend Mothers, and then you have the memories of your own genealogical makeup as well, that's a lot of people. One, that's a lot of people. So of course you have to be mature enough to take all of that. But that's why, like I say, in the second book, at the start of the book, the historian says that when she awakened to consciousness in her mother's womb, it's like a rape and worse than rape, and then you understand, you know. And so, after that, you see that Paul rides the worm, which is a cultural rites of passage, um, where, Fremen boys and whatnot ride the worm at age 12. But he, still God says, I don't want an old man shaming my teachings, but he's an off-worlder. And after that, you see Paul reuniting with Gurney. But in that scene when he's riding a worm, like you said, he does the call when you ride a worm, hey yo, right? And you see him reuniting with Gurney, who thinks that he's dead. Now in the books, it's not only Gurney that's alive, but it's also Thufir Howard, the Mentat. For the Atreides. He's also alive, but it's in the book. So that's what I say. Read the book, but you see Gurney and he's alive, and also you'll see that Irulan, you know, figures out the Baron's plan to draw out the Emperor, and also she sees more in that the plan of the Emperor, the plan of the Baron to let Raban really run loose and mess things up so he can bring in Fade to basically lead the Fremen. And then, like Fenrir said, Hasima Fenrir, says, a people, with that's lived in conditions worse than your own prison planet, that could rival your dreaded Sardaukar. Now, the prison planet that he's talking about is Seleucus Secundus, which that's where they train the Sardaukar. But you see that the emperor summons the Baron to see what he's up to, what are his real plans, and we see another raid, and then we see that they find a guildsman, of the Spacing Guild in this raid, and then you see the guildsman quote statutes, to Paul Muad'Dib, and he says, I would like to remind you of the guild treaty of section such as paragraph such, and Paul says, imperial law has no merit where Muad'Dib stands, and then the guild is like, but forms must be obeyed. He's like, be quiet. Whereas you see the guild is already using the law and the statutes. We're not going to even say the law, but just the statutes, of the imperial realm, and also his own, we'll say nations treaties with the imperial realm, to shield and protect them. And you have Paul like, none of that matters. All of that is void. which says something, that when somebody probably comes at you with these statutes, doesn't mean you have to obey. Well, you have to obey them. If you see this in this scene, you can just say, well, none of that matters, and then they're baffled as the guildsman was like, but these forms must be obeyed. And, Paul's not blinking an eye. He's like, just be quiet, so. And we see Chaney going back to the siege and telling Jessica that Gurney's alive. But what's interesting about this scene is that you see the conflict in cultures. Chaney wants, Leto, the newborn baby that her and Paul have. she wants him to play with the children, and learn the siege ways of the siege. And Jessica's like, no, because there's things that he must learn that go beyond, the ways of the siege. Now you see the conflict in cultures. Now, mind you, Jessica is the Reverend Mother for the Fremen, and she's different from like Reverend Marlowe, who really sort of embodied the culture. Jessica don't, and she separates her grandson from that culture, and then she tells Cheney, does Paul, share these sentiments, and Cheney says, well, he leaves, all the decisions of our son to me, which shows that he's not really being a good steward of his own harem, you know, um, which is a setup for failure. You have to give the knowledge and the direction, and he's not doing it. He just told her, you figure it out, pretty much. And then Jessica tells her, you've been a good companion, but she says it in a way like a high born or a rich person would say it, or a rich mom would say it to someone that's low born. You've been a good companion to my son, but he's not like other men, and there must be a, a potential marriage between noble houses if there ever were to occur. So basically, she's just saying that you can never marry him legally, because there almost must be like a political or house alliance always open and available, because he's a noble, and of course he's the legitimate heir of House Atreides, which as I explained, if you know harem politics, he would be the legitimate heir if there was a legitimate consort in the picture, and she gave birth, and then he wouldn't be the legitimate heir. That would be the legitimate heir. Whoever is the legal, consort or wife, not the not the concubine, or the seed of the progeny of the concubine, will be the legitimate heir. But in this case, Paul is. And so, Cheney says, don't worry, I'll do what's best, for him, and things of that nature. Basically, you like I say, you see the conflict, and you see basically the I would say the conflict of trying to make Cheney basically submit to her role, like know your place, and in that scene, so it's very interesting. But like I say, because this is a conflict of cultures, something to read upon is, when cultures, or at least the solution for cultural conflict is solutions for dysfunctional families, written by Chief, which goes into, when these things happen. But after that, you see Gurney trying to kill Jessica, because of the simple fact that everybody thought that Jessica was the traitor, what I'm saying? And so he tries to kill her, but it bothers Paul because he couldn't see it. And before that, he talks to his mother and saying how he's fulfilling the role that destiny has called for him, and and they go with how, basically Jessica used the Fremen for survival, and she's like, you're doing it too, which he is. A comp this is a cautionary tale on false messiahs and charismatic leaders, because he is using the Fremen. Paul is using the Fremen. Make no doubt, he's really not submitting himself to Fremen culture. Even if you just watch the movies, he never really submits himself to the Fremen culture, and he doesn't embody that culture in himself. He's still an off-worlder. No matter how much he does for them, or things of that nature, or talk them, he still is an off-worlder, because he's not he hasn't submitted himself to the culture. But like I say, Gurney tries to kill Jessica, and then Paul tells him, it was Dr. Yui. It was Yui. And I would show him, he says, I would show you the written confession and everything, so you'll know. you know. But because Paul couldn't see um, Gurney's motives, he goes to take the water of life, right? So in this scene, one thing, if you don't know anything else, Paul is reliant on the future, and he's relying on time, what I'm saying, to see everything for him. That's why he's so addicted to the spice, because he's relying on it. He's relying on the future and seeing the future and things of that nature. So he knows what's coming. He's very reliant on it, which he can't, which he's not observing the times and the way things are moving in a natural sense. He's basically forcing his way to see the future, with using the spice, whereas, some people can see, the way tides are turning, and they don't use those things at all in modern times. They just see it. Exactly. They got to figure it out. And he's not trying to figure out. He's gonna say, "Well, basically, the spice is like the cheat code." Like if you ever played a video game, for those of us, and they had, either the strategy books, or they had like Game Genie, or they had the cheat codes to unlock certain things, and that sort of stifled the game, because you didn't figure it out on your own. You relied on somebody else to do all the work, and then you just, okay, back, A, B, C, or whatever, right trigger, left trigger, left trigger, R1, R2, things of that nature, and bam, you got it. You're right. And that's what he's doing. And he takes the water of life, and he's been, unconscious for a few days or whatever, and the young men have rallied around it, and basically chanted, as he is asleep and well unconscious, and everybody's waiting for him to wake up, and they're trying to find out what's wrong with him. And then Chang is the one that basically takes some of the water of life and figures out that he's taking the water of life, and she takes some of it and rubs it on his lips, and then all of a sudden, after a period of time, he comes out of it. And then when you see that scene, it's really like he's more addicted even after taking the water of life. He's more addicted to time and the future and things of that nature. If you read his nonverbal communication, he seems more addicted to the future and times, things of that nature. But he shows his mother, um, and he says, I've been to many things and many places, and he says, I've seen the now, the future, and the past, and it's all one, and it's all the same. And he says, I'm the whirlwind, and he shows her the place where she cannot look, and she'll go mad, and he's like, that's why I have come. you know and he says, I am the fulcrum, I am the giver and the taker, I am the master of fate, and I am the tool of fate. you know um and she sees everything that he sees in that scene, and it terrifies her. And then after that, he goes out to see, the Fedaykin. And they tell him that, Paul has seen through the water of life, and so the Fedaykin's like, call him out, call Stilgar out and fight him, because that's our way, and Paul's like, the way has changed, and he doesn't fight Still. And he's like, must I prove to you, that I'm strong, and kill our wisest and strongest naive, just for the sake of some mindless ritual? And he says that there isn't no one among you that could stand against me in combat, Stilgar included. Why do I have to prove it? You say I'm the Mahdi, I say I am your Duke. And it's time to make Arrakis a paradise, and we will do this together. And then they say, long live the Duke, and long live Paul Muad'Dib, um, and then they say, Ya Choada, which means long live the fighters, and long live the fighters of Muad'Dib, and then they go to chanting, Muad'Dib, Muad'Dib, and then they see water come out of basically, it's a statue. So water is coming out from the hands of the statue, which is supposed to be the Mahdi. And then they start saying Mahdi, Mahdi, and you see people dancing and things of that nature and still chanting and whatnot. But if you pay attention to that scene, you basically are seeing the entrapment of the young in that scene. You are basically seeing the entrapment of the young, and basically Paul being the opiate, for the young, because of him being a charismatic leader and things of that nature. He's entrapping the young. I never realized that before. But yeah, if this is a cautionary tale on charismatic leaders, then that's what you are seeing. And then knowing that the example that Frank Herbert actually used was Kennedy. Well, think about that. Think about that time. And who was really on Kennedy's side? The young. The young, and melanin rich people, and things of that nature. But the young loved Kennedy at that time. They loved him. They loved his wife. Jackie O wasn't no old lady. She was fashionable, things of that nature. She smiled. And Kennedy was young. He was in shape. He was a handsome man. And of course he was, because he pulled Marilyn Monroe. So yeah. But think about that. That was an opiate for the young. And after that, they didn't care. And so Jessica in the next scene, basically questions if because she's seen what Paul is seeing, she knows what's coming, but but he's like, I'm powerless to stop it, and she questions that. She said, "Are you?" you know, and he says, humanity is about to reinvent itself, and there are no innocents anymore. You know, um, and 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 she says, "Well, your father wouldn't have said that." Well, I'm not my father. And she says, "Well, you are his son." And he says, "I am much more, thanks to you." And then he goes in to reveal, that he has Harkonnen blood and that she is the Baron's daughter. But like I said, that scene happens way early in the books. Way early in the books before he takes the water of life, when he has basically his first waking dream. You know, but if you pay attention to that scene, he says there are no innocents anymore. That means everybody is subject to being collateral damage, because there are no innocents anymore. And then you know you see that this is basically one earlier sign of a tyrannical rule with Paul, because he's not going, because he's already saying there's no innocence anymore, therefore there's no one that's there to be saved. If there are no innocence anymore, then no one can be saved, or no one's going to be saved, and I'm not going to save them. I'm powerless to stop it. Whatever happens. And so after that, um, there's a Sardaukar raid, because they're clamping down, and one of the casualties is Little Leto, or Leto the second. Um, he ends up dying. One of the Sardaukar kill him, and Paul knows, and he tells Chain, even though he's far away, he knows that his son is dead. And so after that, you see basically Alia is a hostage, because there was only one that they could take from that raid, and it was Alia. And she meets the Emperor and she meets the Baron, right? And she talks. I like how when I was young, this part was always cool with me, because Alia was cool. But she talks to the Emperor, and she looks at the Baron and says, "So here he is, the fat Baron himself." And then the Baron says, "What is this? Some kind of midget?" And basically, Alia said, "Your Majesty, I don't know what you're talking about." And then Alia says, "He's lying, of course. Make him afraid some more." And then, you got the Emperor saying, "You're going to tell your brother, Muad'Dib, to surrender." And she says, "No, I don't take orders from you, old man." As you can see, she's not a kid. you know. And he says, "Impudent child, you have not seen, you don't want to see my power." And she says, "I am beyond your power. Ask her." And she's talking about Reverend Mother Gaius Hellum, and she's like, "Kill her. She's the abomination that the ancients warned us about." you know. And as all of that is going on, Irulan says, "Look at her, father. She's Atreides, and Muad'Dib is Paul Atreides, her brother. But as that's going on, and one, Paul takes a Sardaukar POW, right? A captain, and he gives him a declaration of surrender to give to the emperor. The emperor refuses, and they know because yeah, that's an interesting point about the young being swept away by charisma, not just in the movies, but in general. Yeah, I mean, but you also know that because that is a marketing tactic. you know, yeah, that is a marketing tactic to basically engage the young in consumerism. From it goes from toys to video games, and then it goes from music, and things of that nature. So charisma and things of that nature, being the opiate of the young, plays a very deep role, at least in our modern times right now, at least in the now, and it has for a very long time. You know, but when it came to advertising and things of that nature, before TVs and things of that nature, you had newspapers and ads, as I say, as advertisements. Before people said advertisements, that it was advertisements, and things of that nature, and catalogs, from JC Penney's, and we've all done it. JC Penney's or Sears, or if you want to go back, Sears and Roebuck, and things of that nature, and Macy's, you know. So you see this that play out with the young, and because of that, there's no covering of the young to say no, you're not going to get into that. They're easily swept up by it, and so then after that, you see Paul and Gurney and Stilgar. They see that the shields are up on the Imperial Palace on in Arakeen, and so they blow the shield wall, the mountainous shield wall, and they invade with the worms, with Fremen on them. And as that's happening, you got Alia messing with Reverend Mother Gaius Hellimoyam. And she's like, she's in my mind. And there's nothing she can do about it, because that's a Reverend Mother. And apparently she's a powerful one at that, but she's preborn. And then all of a sudden, you see the Baron, grabs a hold of Alia, and then she scratches him with, a Gom Jabbar. And she says, farewell, grandfather. You finally met the Atreides Gom Jabbar. But yeah. And he ends up dying. He dies from poison. And he dies as he's floating and things of that nature. But they invade and they are successful, they successful all through, the city, and they kill Roban and things of that nature. And then they take the Imperial Palace, and they take the Citadel, the Arakeen Citadel. And after that, you see Paul on a throne, with the Atreides banner behind him and things of that nature, like he's the king, And then he threatens to destroy spice production, basically with the Change Waters of Life, on a pre-spice bass blow. And he admits that he knows that the guild and the Reverend Mothers know about it too, or the Bene Gesserit know about it too, because that's what they feared, And when he threatens to do that, you got the Reverend Mother looking at Jessica saying, silence him. As you said, silence him yourself. But in that scene, it's telling because you see the nonverbal guilt of Jessica, because she knows what's going to happen if, you know, the waters are spread on, on that pre-spice mass blow, killing the little makers or the little worms and things of that nature, and it's spreading all through, um, Arrakis. Because what's going to happen basically is a mass genocide. Because if there's not enough makers or they instantly go extinct, then you're going to have a lot of people die from spice withdrawal. Like I said, spice is a drug, and you can die from spice withdrawal. And that's really going to impact who more than anybody. One is going to impact the guild, because their navigators depend so much on spice for one. But mostly the closest people that is going to impact is the Fremen. Because if that happens, then a lot of them are going to die because they're already addicted to spice by just living here. So you're going to have a lot of people die. Like I say, anybody basically under the age of 12, yeah. So basically, what it seems like the Fremen were doing was basically, if that were to go down, they're basically participating in their own genocide. That's basically what it is. Because if he's allowed to do that, then yeah, we're participating in our own genocide, because we depend on the spice because we live here and it's in everything. So if the makers leave and then the ecology quickly changes like that, then a lot of us are going to die because we are already dependent on the spice. We've been that way since we were preteens. So we're going to die because we need to keep on taking it. So you've seen them participating in their own genocide with that threat right there. And there's nobody say, hold on. you know. I want, the ecology to change on Arrakis too, but I ain't trying to die, or things of that nature. But you also see, well, I'll say it in the epilogue. But after that, you see that to stop everything or from happening, Irulan suggests marrying Paul, and the Emperor's like, no, and she says, he's here's a guy worthy enough to be your son, you know what I'm saying, and things of that nature. And Jessica's also reluctant, but Chaney's like, no, Mom, this is best for us all. But before that, Faye challenges Paul by invoking Canley. And Paul asks, well, do you fight, with, under the Emperor's name? And he says, the Emperor says, if Faye wishes, he can come to you with my blade in his hand. And Faye said he wishes. Basically, is saying that with having the blade of the Emperor, he fights with the authority of the Emperor, or as a champion of the Emperor. You can say that as well. Just, I would say, know your chivalric code and medieval code and things of that nature, and you see that as well when it comes to medieval knights and things of that nature. But yeah, and so they fight, and Paul acknowledges Fade as his cousin, and then he kills him, and we see, Irulan standing there as being, saying that she'll marry him, and Paul turns his back and looking at Chaney, and you have Jessica's monologue saying, you see her standing there so haughty, let's just, so confident, let's just hope she finds solace and in her writings and in her books, because it's us who bear the title concubine, history would call us wives. And then you see him and Cheney, on the desert sands, and they basically walking off into the sunset, and that's the end. But epilogue, right? When I said that, the Fremen are participating in their own genocide, they are. Because if you know what happens after the first book, when the ecology actually changed on Arrakis, they are participating in their own genocide. And every promise that Muad'Dib or Paul or Liet gave to them didn't hold up. This this change in ecology is killing the planet because it wasn't supposed to be messed with anyway. If you know that the changing of the ecology, that's the way that the planet was adamantly created. That's the way it's functioning. Here you are, man-made or grafting the ecology into the planet, and so it's rejecting it in a sense by the dying of the worms and things of that nature, and it's going to be an issue later on. And then you see that an insurrection and a rebellion or a rebellious faction comes amongst the Fremen, with other Fremen that doesn't want the ecology to change, and they want to keep their culture and things of that nature. And, they go against Paul and things of that nature. And he has a very tyrannical rule in a sense, and he does. And even though basically the emperor does surrender, he still, brings the Fremen out, and they basically conquer the noble houses of Landsrod in that, later on. And I'll get into this. When Jessica says this, about concubines being wives, it's sort of laughable in the sense that if you read later on and things of that nature, actually the real wife, if you want to, if you pay attention to the readings, the real wife is Irulan. She's the entitled wife, not Cheney, because Irulan, like Irulan writes. She writes books upon books upon books about Muad'Dib and about the Fremen and things that, and she writes more than one book. She's basically writing his legacy. With her writings, you see it in the first book. All the writings she does. She writes about her father and things of that nature as well. But also, she writes so much. But she's also spurned by Paul and the things that happen, like in God Emperor. All of that could have, like I said, all of it could have been stopped if Paul had the knowledge and the direction to really give to Irulan as well as Cheney, because all that was love, but there was no direction. And because of that, Irulan does something or attempts something. Basically, she tries to kill Cheney. Or in a sense, she poisons her so she won't have a child, because she's saying it's my right to birth the legitimate heir, which she's not wrong. Like I said, harem politics. But Cheney is like, you just have, they like, you have a place to play, nothing more. You just have his name, but I'm the one he calls wife. But she's actually the legitimate wife, because not only does she writes about Paul's legacy enough, at the end she raises the children. That not her. She don't have to, but she does, and she loves those children. She'll do anything for them. She wanted to protect those children of Paul and Cheney. So she was the real wife, even when she didn't have to be. But because of bad household stewardship, things go awry and things of that nature. and there's a problem that could have been solved, but Paul was too relying on the on time and the future, and as Chief said, time is an illusion, and he's relying on all of that. He's not paying attention to his own household, but yet he becomes the emperor of the known universe. But yet he can't even solve a simple dispute between basically two women. Now, to me, it seems now for some of us with a little game, it seems like, oh, this is so simple to fix. All you gotta do is, dot this I, cross this T, and bam, But he doesn't do that, you know. But that goes into it, and then in the later books, you see, Alia being preborn and how she slowly becomes an abomination, and she becomes possessed. She literally becomes possessed by an ancestral spirit. And the irony is, an ancestral spirit that which she killed, which is the Baron Harkonnen. She becomes possessed by that spirit. So if you read the books, let that be a lesson to you. Not every relative or ancestral relative will 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 do right by you. Some of them are stuck in their own wherever they are, and they don't know how to get out. You know what I'm saying? That they'll even consider possessing you. Because they don't care. They're dead. They're spirits. They don't have the morality like we do on the physical realm. So they'll do anything to probably have a have the sensation of touch and things of that nature if they haven't progressed on from that, and went on, wherever that place is that you go that doesn't allow you to get stuck, but that's what happens to her, and things of that nature. And then in the later books we get into cloning, with one that it's not really present in the first book, but with Duncan, Idaho. And then we get into Paul's children, Ganima and Leto the third, pretty much, Leto Atreides, and them bringing preborn, and the things they go through, as children, as grown people, and the decision that Leto does, and his architecture of what's called the Golden Path, or Sakar Nabai, and just how he talks. Like I say, being preborn is very interesting. Just how they talk to grown people but they're children or in a child's body. So I love Children of Dune and things of that nature. Just because how Leto talks to Stilgar and grown people, and how he talks to Jessica, and how, like I say, how he calls her out, and things of that nature. And but like I say, it's a very deep series, because you see the changing of the planet that wasn't really meant naturally, and how it messes not only with the Atreides but with the Fremen, and how they have to go, humanity will reinvent themselves from what is coming. But that's like I said, that's later in the books, and it has to happen in order for basically the Fremen to leave Arrakis. Because they're going to leave Arrakis, They came to Arrakis, they're going to leave. And then they're going to, and then pretty much they're going to come back. And like I say, it's very interesting and very deep. And I love the series, the original series. Like I said, I have to read the other books, but that's it. Pretty much. I've given you as much as I could to at least spark your interest in reading the actual books. It's much deeper if you read the books, listen to them on the book, wherever it is, Kindle, whatever, ebook, whatever, you know. But because it's a deep story. But like I say, it was a story based on, at least in the first book, it's a story about charismatic leaders and how they may have popularity and charisma and all that, but that don't mean that they're best suited for the role that they've been put it out. And then you'll see that with Paul. He's not the best leader. you know, and even people in his own camp will question that. You know what I'm saying? Because of the things that he do. And like I say, even they feel the cultural conflict when it comes to that. Because like I say, he's not really a Fremen, even though he's live among them, and you see that as he becomes the emperor. He's not really one of them because he changes the ecology and uses, the teachings of Liet. But even Liet didn't have the wisdom to know this is not supposed to be done because this is the natural way of this world. And who am I to grab this world because I have an emotional problem with the way it is. It was like this for a reason. It was like this for a reason. Who am I to change it? But by changing it, you set off a series of events. I mean, just a series of events. There'll be a time when the Fremen wear steer suits like it's fashion, not because that's part of that culture and the way Dune is, or the way the world of Arrakis is. It's fashion. Being in a seat is like being in a museum. It's actually like in one book. It's actually like a museum reservation. The actual siege. Everybody lives in the cities now, and things of that nature, and you see it, the decadence culturally of the Fremen, all because they allowed the Atreides to lead them. So, like I say, it's a lot. It is a lot, and you get a lot out of it if you pay attention. You know what I'm saying, and whatnot. So yeah. So next strong, we'll be going into the book of Eli, which is going to be very interesting because we do. I didn't mean to do this, but we are doing Denzel watching the movies back to back. I didn't know. I just thought about it. I was like, oh, you're doing Denzel movies back to back, huh? But yeah, that's the next one. Book of Eli. We're gonna get into it. It's good movie. Enjoyed it. And I enjoyed talking about this, especially during Ramadan. And I want to give thanks to everybody. And hey, like I say, read the books. You never know what you're going to get out of it. You know what I'm saying? You never know what you're going to get out of it. And that's with anything. But like you say, you can't get everything out of a book. So also remember that. You can't get everything out of a book. So give thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your strong. See you on Shabbat, and give thanks. Peace.